Yes, it's your girl Petty Paige back at it again with yet another video for you hoes. Before we get started, I just want to let you know that there is a product mention in this video. Today I have a beautiful set of earrings in my ears from Shop LC. These are the Lustro Stella simulated diamond stud earrings in 925 sterling silver. It goes for the reasonably priced $24.99, and I chose these because everybody needs like a tiny little hoop that gives them a bit of a glam, a bit of glitz, and also high key because they match my nails. Hi! Anyway, you can go over to Shop LC and shop for this specific product and others, but make sure that you use code PAIGE30 in order to get 30% off your first purchase. Yes! I'm sorry I had to go straight into the ad, guys, but you guys know, like, Lord knows that this video is going to be demonetized because the heavy topics that we are going to be talking about today, it's a lot, bitch. And honestly, it has taken me a good couple of days to go through this information. Now, I want to say a massive thank you to Conse TV who put me in touch with Todrick because I was able to have a good 2.5 hour long conversation with Todrick, which I have recorded. He's very much aware that the conversation is recorded. That was just for mine and his protection, so that nothing that I say in today's video can ever be taken out of context or misconstrued. But unfortunately, I will not be including a lot of clips in this video purely because it was just for my personal information. But yes, I did speak to him. I spoke to him for 2 hours and he is eager to share his story in full. So you know it wouldn't be a Petty Paige video without a massive production at the very beginning. So this is my video, Todrick Cracked. Enjoy.
This honestly has woken me up because I'm like, Todrick, you're not even living your life so you can entertain these people. And if at drop of a dime, people would be willing to believe this person who has no credibility.
So over the past couple of weeks, Todrick has been accused of many things. And some of the accusations have actually spanned over years and years and years, personally speaking, of not addressing things. He's been accused of racism, colorism, not paying people that he hires, being the evil mastermind behind a lot of activities, as well as now assault, making people sign NDAs for harassment, using the money that he should be using on paying people back on escorts. I mean, what he has been accused of this month alone has been a lot. So when I had the opportunity to have a conversation with Todrick, he broke everything down to me piece by piece, one by one, and we have receipts to validate pretty much everything that it is that he has to say. Now, I am going to be honest, I am going to be playing devil's advocate in today's video as well. Just because Todrick has a lot of receipts to back up his claims doesn't necessarily take away from the harm he has actually done already. Not just to others, but to his name and his career. So without further ado, let's get into who Todrick is. For those of you who do not know, you already know what it is. It's a 60-second rundown, so I'm going to be telling you who Todrick is in 60 seconds. Okay, Okay, so Todrick Hall is a 34-year-old singer and songwriter from Texas. As well as a songwriter, he is also a director, choreographer, and very well-known YouTuber. He first shot to fame when he was in season 9 of American Idol, where he actually got himself over to the semi-finals. After his short-lived fame with American Idol, he then decided to do something in order to keep his name in the spotlight. He had several viral videos on YouTube and had gained himself such a strong following that he even had an MTV show called Todrick, which showed the ins and outs of his video making process. However, nowadays he's most well known for his role on RuPaul's Drag Race. He is a frequent guest judge on the show, as well as used as a choreographer for when the Drag Race girls have a production to be put together for Ru to judge them on. Todrick is also quite well known on Broadway. He has been in a plethora of productions, but most notably his work on Kinky Boots as the main role on that production, where he spends most of his days mostly in drag. He's also quite well known as being Taylor Swift's BFF, and he was also the executive producer of one of Taylor Swift's more recent videos, Calm Down, as well as also being involved in the Look What You Made Me Do music video, which we will get into a little bit later. Okay, so now that those of us who don't know who Todrick Hall is have now been duly informed, let's carry on with the rest of the video. Starting with part 1, the drama with Thom. Okay, so on Monday the 14th of October, Thom White, one of Todrick Hall's backup dancers, accused Todrick Hall of not paying the backup dancers in some of his videos. And as well as that, accused him of whitewashing. Thom has apparently appeared in 2 of his music videos, including the famous Nails, Hair, Hips, Heels. Thom has said, "A bunch of folks have asked about my experience working with Todrick, and I know it's no surprise, but just gonna tell you all now, yes, your reservations about the fella are valid, which is sad because he is talented indeed. But that talent is squandered by coonery, baby whitewashed to hell, and miserably unprofessional. Also, does not pay." Here is the rest of the thread for you guys to read through. Pause to read if you are interested. I didn't feel like there was much point in me reading the whole thread in its entirety, purely because people are very much aware and accustomed to this story already. So take a read of it for yourself, and I'll come back with the rest of my commentary. So in these tweets, Thom actually accused Todrick Hall of somebody who practices coonery and who acts like a coon. Now, a lot of people are very well aware that I get called this all the time in my job, and a lot of people do not know what being a coon is. So in order for me to explain, basically a coon is a black person who does not acknowledge the issues of black people and only sides with the other side, meaning Caucasians. I personally hate this phrase. I feel like it's disgusting, and it's a way of racially segregating our own people from ourselves when we are already a nation of divided people. It is the best way to tell another black person that they just simply are not black enough. And in order to be black enough, you have to side with the majority on all levels, including socio-politically. Another one is Uncle Tom or Uncle Ruckus. This way of further segregating one black person or one black individual away from the rest of the black community seems to be one of the first things that people do to any kind of black person who reaches any level of commercial success. That kind of thing has happened with Beyonce, has happened with obviously Todrick Hall, has happened with Idris Elba, has happened to any person who has reached any level of commercialized success in order to invalidate their success, because the majority of the people who are purchasing tickets, who are buying their albums, who are doing anything are white. And the simple fact of the matter is that we are living in a westernized society where the black population simply do not make up the majority, so there will be other people of other races that will enjoy the content too. Anyway, that is exactly what coon means if you didn't know, but now you know. So basically, can this be applied to Todrick Hall? Well, in the section of the thread where Thom states that Todrick had said that it was quote unquote looking a bit too chocolate, it would lead one to believe that yes, he does not associate too heavily with his own. And most people would say that having an all-black cast would be something that should be celebrated and not something that should be looked down upon as too chocolate. But this isn't actually the first time that Todrick has been accused of coon-like behaviour or coonery. He's also been accused of selling out the black and LGBTQ community after appearing in Taylor Swift's video, Look What You Made Me Do. Partly from a lot of people who felt as if the visuals were taken from Beyonce's Formation video, and by those who have accused Taylor Swift of being a Trump supporter. This Twitter thread, if you read it on its own, has extremely damning evidence of Todrick Hall just simply not paying his dancers and the people around him. But this also isn't the first time that Todrick has actually been accused of this. Back in 2010, his success on American Idol sparked outrage with a lot of parents who had spent a lot of money to pay for Todrick to stage his own musical, The Wizard of Oz musical, which he stated would have its own music video, which would be a contemporary twist on a cult classic. Todrick had been putting on small productions since he was 17 years old. Then in 2008, somebody called Gregory Money agreed to finance his project. This led to a small tour around Texas cities until 2009. And Gregory Money described the whole thing as a financial disaster. The show ended abruptly despite parents from all across the US attending auditions with their children and paying a $50 performance fee. Rhonda Miscock of Nolensville actually backed up Money's claims and basically said that she had attended one of these auditions, paid the $50 performance fee for both of her daughters, which would have been $100, and she still hasn't been refunded. Okay, so that is the baseline of what the general public seem to know about this whole entire situation with Thom. However, this is Todrick cracked, so let's crack that situation. Okay, so since all of this has come to light, a lot of information has come through from Todrick to myself and other drama channels. In regards to the Thom situation, he personally told myself that he loves Thom and Thom is one of his favourite dancers. After his appearance on the Nails, Hair, Hips, Heels video, which was in itself an unpaid gig, he personally invited Thom to go and join him in his fag video. Thom and Todrick were joined by another black male dancer. The reason I'm pointing out their ethnicity is because it's extremely important for what I'm about to tell you. So in the Nails, Hair, Hips, Heels video, where Thom had alleged that Todrick said the words, "It's looking a bit too chocolate in here," I wasn't able to get confirmation whether he really did say those specific words, but he did say he said something to that nature. And he explained to me something about diversity that I kind of feel like makes a lot of sense if you break it down to its original form. He said to me that people seem to think that diversity happens by accident, and it doesn't. It's something that you have to make happen. So when he had a plethora of 60 people behind him, he wanted to make sure that the groups were mixed, that everybody was mingling with each other, that you had, a couple of black people, a couple of Asians, a couple of white guys, effeminate gay guys, a couple of metrosexual gay guys, a couple of cisgenders, differently abled, etc, etc. The placement of these individuals were imperative to show diversity in its truest form. Diversity isn't just about showing black people, it's about showing everybody. So when I think about this, I think about Beyonce and her homecoming tour. I remember the absolute pure joy that I felt seeing that plus size babe dance on the stage alongside all of these skinny minis. Now I think to myself, she was right at the forefront. Why was she there? Because her placement was important. It was important to know where she was so that I could spot her every time and say, that's a girl who looks like me and she can do it, so I can do it. Diversity doesn't happen by accident. You have to make it happen. And honestly, when he said that, it made complete sense. The front row line doesn't have to be black. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. Let's show everybody. Let's show that we're all in this together. Todrick explained to me that the Gregory money situation was pre-anything. This is pre-YouTube, pre-American Idol, pre-anything. And all that he wanted to do was tour across the country, teaching young kids the art of theatre. At the time, Todrick would have been approximately 20 years old and definitely was not the person financing this project. So I feel like it's another situation of, although Todrick's name and everything was on the billboard, people are now holding him responsible for this entire situation when it's not just him, there are a plethora of other people that are involved in this project. Moving on to the second video, which is the fag video, which featured Thom as one of the dancers. Now, the second dancer, and I feel like it's really important to note this for what I'm going to go into next, the second dancer was a male black person of colour. Now, from this music video, Todrick actually ended up taking that dancer on tour with him, where he is at the moment touring across the world. A part of me, just judging by the messages that I've seen back and forth and the way that he was acting online, especially in this particular screenshot, makes me feel as if Thom may have been a little bit salty about the fact that one of the dancers was chosen to go on tour, but he wasn't. Because this dancer isn't actually a token black dancer. In Todrick's shows, and I can show you some footage from a show in London, his 4 main dancers, 3 of them are black and actually only 1 of them are white, which is a level of diversity that you don't tend to see in massive productions of that level. The other thing that also didn't add up to me was the time frame. Now, Thom had said that it had been a little over a month and he had not received payment for his most recent video with Todrick. Now, that seems very premature to me, and the reason I say this is because it's an industry standard that you don't get paid for a month. For instance, I'm doing this work right now for Shop LC. You'll be seeing me post all of their stuff across my social media, but because they have their own banking process, I'm not going to get paid for like another month and a half. That's quite common. It would be like me posting my first post for them and then saying, why haven't I been paid yet? You should pay me now. They have their own banking system, they have their own payroll system, there are people that it has to go through, there are several levels it has to go down before it gets to that payday. So a little over a month for a payment is actually relatively good. There are so many different other companies, major companies and corporations that simply just don't pay for 3 months because you're not top on their list. And I've had that happen to me several times. Now, Todrick isn't somebody who was going out of his way to even scam this individual, because as you can see in this screenshot over here, when Thom was chasing up his money, he actually sent in an invoice with an incorrect amount. And he was actually due an extra $200. And instead of leaving it as it is, Todrick actually went out of his way to let him know that he was supposed to be paid more and to change his invoice to add that extra $200. If this was a person who wanted to scam, shortchange, not pay somebody, then he wouldn't have sent that extra piece of information because it would have been on him. He got it wrong and that's what he should be invoiced on, what he sent. So the argument that Todrick Hall is the Grinch that stole Christmas just simply isn't adding up to me, because it seems as if in this situation he followed practice and protocol. And if this person is reaching out to Todrick as an individual and not getting any answers, I mean, he's an extremely busy guy. If anything, the only thing I can say in this situation is that Todrick possibly didn't inform people of the relevant avenues to take in order to get their money for the shoot, which should be well known across the board. You shouldn't have to, you know, look through a kaleidoscope in order to figure out where on earth you're supposed to be paid from. You're supposed to know who's got to pay you. Okay, so let's get into the next part of the drama and crack and solve that situation too. This is part 2, the drama with Manila, Luzon. Okay, so we've all heard the story of Manila, Luzon, but just to break it down for you briefly, we're just going to talk about what exactly happened, and then we're going to crack the code of what really happened. So when Thom, the guy in the previous section, had spoken up on social media about his experience and not getting paid, Manila Luzon comes straight out of the woodworks to state that she also did not get paid for a show that she did for Halloween. That was Halloween last year, not this year. At this point, it would lead people to believe that there is clearly a pattern with Todrick Hall of not paying people what they are due. Okay, so why did Todrick Hall not pay Manila Luzon, especially since she's a contestant on the show that he works on? Let's take a look deeper into this situation with more of the Todrick Cracked. Okay, so let's crack this code, shall we, bitch? Possibly the most disappointing part of this whole entire story is how this Manila Luzon situation actually turned out. It turns out that Manila Luzon may not have been entirely truthful about the whole situation with herself and Todrick Hall. The event that Manila Luzon is speaking about wasn't actually an event that was held by Todrick Hall himself. In fact, it was a local producer who had used Todrick's face on the flyers and called it Todrick's Party. Once that had already gone out, Todrick kind of felt like he was obligated to make this party the best that it could be, considering somebody's already put his name on it. The producer who was hosting this event actually ran out of finances and money and said that they were having trouble funding certain aspects of the event, such as the decorations, the red carpet, etc, etc. So Todrick actually ended up sending the producer of this event over $3,000 in order to get the bits and bobs that they needed to make this event a splash. So already he feels like he has had his name put on something that he didn't want his name put on, or was not very well informed that he'd put his name on. And then to top that off, because his name's on it, he now feels like he's obligated to make it a nice grand affair. However, when he got to the event, he said that it looked like something out of Party City. His words. He said it was like a couple of balloons, it was just a shambles and a mess. Anywho, he decided to put his brave face on and went into the event, and they had basically told everyone that Todrick would be performing a 1-hour set. Todrick, feeling extremely used, did not perform a 1-hour set. He only performed 3 songs. And even that, personally, I kind of feel was extremely generous given the situation. So let's go back to Manila. She was very much aware of the situation at the time and that this wasn't Todrick's event. She in fact knew that it wasn't supposed to be Todrick Hall that paid her, but in fact the producer that put together the event. So it kind of feels to me as if Manila Luzon, when the tide got rough, decided to throw Todrick under the bus. What is true, however, is that she wasn't paid. And the reason that the promoter had given for not paying her was that she was acting like a diva bitch. Todrick had in fact got in touch with the promoter and basically said, just because you feel that somebody is a diva, it is totally unacceptable to use that as a way to justify not paying them. He actually told the producer that he would pay Manila out of his own money and that he would never do any dealings with this promoter ever again. This promoter has also been doing some dodgy dealings because it seems as if he was doing invoices under the name of Todrick Productions, which doesn't exist. Todrick's corporation is actually called Toddy Inc. So he then went on to show Manila Luzon the conversation that he had had with the promoter and said, give me your payment info, babe, and I will direct deposit this straight to you. I so apologize. However, she left him on read. A couple of months later, Todrick then reached out to Manila for a second time and basically said, I want to make sure the situation is resolved because I'd love to work with you again in the future. Once again, she left Todrick on read. So she was aware of the situation. She was aware of how much Todrick was fighting her corner. She was aware of what the promoter had said. She was aware that the promoter had been handling things extremely badly. But then when times got rough on the internet for Todrick, she thought it was prime time to throw him under the bus. I honestly feel as if that's extremely disgusting behaviour, and it actually completely changes my entire perception of Manila Luzon. I thought that she was a fair, unbiased queen, but it seems as if she's a two-faced person and will throw somebody under the bus the minute the opportunity arises. This, however, isn't the first situation that Manila Luzon has decided to throw somebody under the bus. In fact, she did something extremely similar with RuPaul some time ago, but that is a completely different story for a completely different day. I am not getting into that drama. But yeah, this was extremely scummy, Manila. Like, this does not look good. I actually look forward to hearing your rebuttal to this, because that is the most grossest thing that I have ever seen. To essentially publicly kick somebody whilst they're down. Great. Okay, so let's get into even more tea with the Tommy situation. So join me for part 3, the trouble with Tommy. Okay, so a couple of days after all of the allegations had surfaced from Todrick Hall's ex-dancer, his ex-assistant then took to social media to spill the tea on his ex-boss. Thomas Miskizok, I think that's how you pronounce his name, took to Twitter to air his grievances with Todrick. It says, "I was at Todrick Hall's personal assistant for years. I know every detail of his life, including deliberate non-payment to people, racism, assault, harassment, online bullying, exploitation, illegal business practices, the list goes on. P.S. I never signed an NDA." He alleges that Todrick apparently committed fraud in order to allow his boyfriend to be on Drag Race. He also alleges that Todrick was paying for escorts and strippers instead of paying the people who actually worked for him, and that he constantly bashed Taylor Swift. He also claims that Todrick was sued for sexual harassment for a former employee who had to settle out of court. Okay, so those are the allegations that Tommy has said about Todrick. So let's get into Tommy and his personal past cracked. Okay, so the person who broke all of that information is a guy called Tommy Miskizok, who is a disgruntled ex-employee who was let go because of some extremely questionable behaviour that I do not think it is my place to say on the internet. Tommy himself leaked out the court records to do with the sexual harassment claims, but Todrick states that he wouldn't have known about the lawsuit unless Tommy himself, whilst being an assistant for Todrick, wasn't helping him gather all of the evidence together to kind of absolve him of the crimes and criminal activity and allegations that were put against Todrick. We also have the fact that this employee did in fact hack Todrick Hall. There are receipts of this on the internet. A massive shout out to Blue, one of my moderators on Discord, who was able to find this information. But it seems as if that this Tommy guy doesn't have a very reputable past himself. He actually hacked Todrick Hall, and there is proof of him hacking Todrick Hall on social media, and also using this in order to not only to defame him on the internet, but also to harass his family members, which is just a no-go area for me. Anyone who takes a look through Thomas's Twitter or any kind of social media will know that he's not in a great place right now. He's doing all of that hate and all that kind of stuff on the internet, posting half-naked photographs of Todrick, then posting videos of himself doing things to other people and saying that that's Todrick, and even just some of the messages that he's been sending Todrick, which I'll leave on the screen now, just seems extremely personal and aggressive, and just as a way to hurt him. I just think that he's a little bit obsessive, and that if he does say anything, we should take it with a pinch of salt, because at this very moment in time, a lot of major news publications, including the Daily Mail, Insider, etc., have ran with this story, and I'm like, this guy is nuts. He's not all there, and he's definitely going through something, so I don't feel like he's a reputable source. But that's just my 2 cents. You can go over, I'll leave a link to it down below, and check out his social media See it for yourself, because anybody with eyes would know that this is not okay what he's doing right now. The guy seems like he's spiraling. Anyway, let's move on to the lawsuit, because this is the meat and potatoes of everything. So let's get into part 4, the sexual harassment allegations and the lawsuit. In Toddy, cracked. Okay, baby girl, we have gone through a lot of information to get to this point, so if you're here with me, thank you so much, but this has been an ordeal. So Stephen Land, the Straight Out of Oz company manager, claims that he and his boyfriend Dash both worked for Todrick on his tour. And when they got into a relationship, Todrick threatened to get rid of one of them or both of them. Dash became unwell and allegedly Todrick did not help him, he just fired him. Stephen then went on tour with Todrick, but Stephen believes it was to get him alone, to make him become F-buddies. But Stephen alleges that he remained loyal to his boyfriend. He was then fired too in April of 2017. After that, Stephen then sent an email apparently to the rest of the employees stating that he was fired by Todrick, but there was no real information on that either. Apparently because of this, Todrick had not paid him a penny for the work that he had done, which had led to him and his boyfriend becoming homeless. They were apparently unable to leave Miami and even had to go to like food bank places in order to survive and eat. When you originally hear this story, it honestly sounds heartbreaking. And when I first came across the Todrick Hall story, I genuinely thought, what a gross, disgusting guy. Imagine like leaving somebody in such a predicament. Well, it turns out that this also was not what it seemed. So with the further receipts provided by Todrick Hall himself, this is the sexual allegations cracked. Okay, so this situation is a bunch of crazy, but let's just get into it. So the real tea, according to Todrick Hall, is that Stephen Land actually did try and sue Todrick for $200,000 for wrongful termination of their contract, before then trying to settle for $200,000 out of court. When they went to court, things did not go so well for Stephen, because judging by the messages, etc., that I am going to be showing up on the screen right now as I am speaking, it is very obvious that in this situation, Stephen was the aggressor, and in fact, Todrick had a boyfriend at the time, and it was Todrick who wanted to remain loyal to his boyfriend. Now, just a full disclosure, in Todrick's relationship with his boyfriend at the time, they had a somewhat open relationship. They could flirt, they could do their own little things, etc., etc., but when it came down to it, it was just them two. But as you can see from these messages, a lot of them are of a sexual nature, and a lot of them are messages where he's telling Todrick that he misses him, and a lot of discussion over Todrick's relationship status. There doesn't seem to be, in the screenshots that I was given, any evidence of the contrary. I mean, at this point, I wouldn't have the evidence to be able to prove this other guy's innocent, as it has been only one-sided with the information that I've been given from Todrick. But I mean, come on, this seems very, very one-sided. And in fact, it seems as if Todrick was telling you to hold it and cool off, my dude. I mean, I have seen way too much bussy for my liking. None of the photographs and videos, none of that was coming from Todrick's side. And I even have like a screen recording video and all that kind of stuff. Like, nothing that I saw there was Todrick aggressing the situation. Everything that I saw was Stephen really wanting to be all up in that and getting turned down several times. Anyway, back to Todrick's open relationship. He was in an open relationship with somebody called Jessie. I'm saying somewhat because I don't feel like it was a proper open relationship, because there was a level of monogamy in there. But the agreement was that it was okay to flirt with other people, but essentially they would come back together and be one. But Jessie at the time began to feel uncomfortable because Stephen was somebody that Todrick worked with, and he kind of felt like it was overstepping a line, and I kind of agree. Todrick told me that he immediately cut things off. So when their relationship had ended, then it seems as if Stephen ended up getting very salty and actually decided not to work for him anymore. Shortly after that, then he decided to take him to court, which is where he asked for the $300,000 and tried to settle for $200,000. However, with this extremely incriminating, damning evidence that I've now shown to you, Stephen's claims were completely thrown out. Because not just that, but also Stephen had handed in a letter of resignation. And if you remember, his original reason for this lawsuit was of wrongful termination of his contract. When in fact he terminated his own contract, he decided to leave. Nobody got rid of him, as you can see from this screenshot here. But in order to make this all go away and the sexual assault allegations not to be made public or come to light, obviously before Tommy, his ex-assistant, decided to speak about it, he paid the legal fees for this guy Stephen, as well as his own legal fees. And then by him paying the legal fees for both parties, he also agreed within those terms, so there was no financial impact on Stephen, that Stephen would sign an NDA. For that reason, and that reason alone, is the only reason that I haven't reached out to Stephen. I've reached out to every single party involved in this situation. The only person that I haven't reached out to is Stephen, and that's purely because I'm aware that he signed an NDA. Even if he wanted to speak, he can't. Okay, so that is the be-all and end-all, I feel like, of the most important elements of this story. Like I said, we spoke for 2.5 hours and I was able to get so much information, but there's just only so much I feel like the audience gives a crap about. But I wanted to move on to my conclusion on this whole entire situation. Okay, so my conclusion. I honestly feel as if Todrick is somewhat the victim in this whole entire situation. It feels like he had a house of cards and that everything just started falling apart. One thing that I do want to note is that Todrick Hall does everything himself. This is his own production. The dancers that he's hiring are his own dancers. Like, literally, it is him and like 3 assistants who deal with these world tours and these big projects it is that he's doing. I feel like Todrick is a person who definitely bites off way more than he can chew when it comes to the production of things, and then doesn't seem to realize the extra added costs that can be incurred when he puts these projects together. For instance, he was explaining the situation to me where he'd hired something for one of his music videos, and then he hadn't added in the transportation costs and all that kind of stuff. If he'd have known, he wouldn't have signed a contract and he wouldn't be having it. He would have made a different arrangement. And it's kind of those little things, those fine details that all add up, especially when you're financing your own projects. One thing that I did notice is that Todrick has absolutely no brand deals or no brand endorsements. We don't see him like flash up Beats headphones or, you know, some kind of makeup company or something like that for a product placement for a couple of seconds. He has none of that, which means that if he's working for himself, he's got no management, that he's doing it out of his own pocket. Ultimately though, no matter what it is or what the situation is, when your name is on something, you are ultimately responsible. For instance, if I was going to be putting out a palette with Colourpop, who apparently want to give everybody a palette, then if the launch didn't go so well, regardless of it being Colourpop who handled everything, it's my name. So I'm responsible, and I'm responsible for the apologies, and I'm responsible for making sure that the situation is rectified. And I feel like there needs to be a level of diligence with himself in the future to make sure that just because people haven't replied or responded doesn't mean that the situation has ended. It just means that they may have just given up. So for him to basically do his part, chase people up, make sure that people paid, have somebody to do that for you. It also feels as if everybody was so willing to jump on the bandwagon when it came to the allegations about Todrick Hall. Because a part of me is just kind of like, this is somebody with an extremely squeaky clean Disney image. In fact, the fact that he's even trusted me to tell his side of the story leads me to believe that this is not something that he does quite regularly. He kind of tries his best to stay out of drama. To the side of me, I'll be leaving you his full statement for you to read. Pause to read if you you are interested. But I think it kind of sheds a light on pretty much everything it is that I have to say in this conclusion. I don't feel like Todrick is totally the victim, but I do feel like in this situation, it was a lot of bandwagon jumping, it was a lot of jumping ship, it was a lot of jumping the fence and going to the most popular side. Most notably on this entire situation is Manila Luzon. I'm extremely disappointed in the way that she acted. But anyway, that's just my thoughts on the entire situation. Tell me what it is that you guys think in the comment section down below. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. If you like it, if you don't, I don't give a shit anyway. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification with the bell so that you guys get a notification every single time the Petty Paige posts new content. I'd like to say a massive thank you to Todrick Hall for trusting me with a lot of sensitive information and to trust me to make this video the best of my ability. I hope I've been able to tell your story fairly. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video. This has been Todrick Cracked by Petty Paige. Until next time, bye.